Hi friends, I'm Rick Ufford Chase, the mayor of the city of Newport, and this is Newport Notes with Rick. We've had quite a bit of activity in the last week, and I'm anxious to share a little bit of what's going on with City Council and then share a couple of stories with you all. So today I'm filming this on the 19th of March. We had a council meeting, our regularly scheduled council meeting on the 17th, just 2 nights ago. And I wanted to share kind of the biggest news from that meeting. We had an appointment by the council of the position of president of the council. We've asked Kevin Charbonneau to serve in that position, and he has agreed to do so. We asked the new council member, Andrew Touchette, if he would be willing to assist the mayor in seeking to fill first the position of the finance and office administration that we have been hoping to fill for some time now. So he'll be working on that with me, and then possibly moving on sometime in the fall to look at other administrative positions, including the possibility of city manager. So Andrew's agreed to take that position on behalf of the whole council. And then one of our 2 task forces, the leadership has been assigned for the Financial Reporting and Fiscal Practices Task Force. And we've asked Carter Finnegan, also a new council member, to serve as the chair of that committee, that task force, and she has agreed to do so. So those 3 positions have been filled. We are hoping tomorrow night to meet for a special council meeting, that's Thursday night the 20th at 6 p.m., to consider those who have expressed interest in being appointed short-term as council members to help us accomplish our work over the next 6 weeks or so. And assuming we are successful in appointing someone tomorrow night, we will ask that person who will be newly appointed to become the chair of the committee that will be working on water and sewer issues. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that process, you're welcome to reach out to me. We've named the initial members of these 2 task forces, and I'll just share the names. Some of them will mean something to some of you, and some may not. Even those of you who've been around a long time, you should know that everyone we've named to these 2 commissions is a Newport resident, but some of them are newer residents and some are older residents. We've got a mix on each committee. So for the Water and Sewer Task Force that will be chaired by the newly appointed council member after tomorrow evening, we have 5 people who have agreed to serve, or 4 who've agreed and 1 who's on the fence. A man named Paul Tice, who lives here in Newport and had 28 years experience with the Champlain Water District, finishing his career with them as the assistant general manager. So he's quite skilled and will have a lot to add, I think, to that team. And then Patrick Hurley, who works as the director of the Memphremagog Watershed Association, has quite a bit of skill with mapping, GIS mapping, and he's got a great head for detail. And Patrick has agreed to serve. Jennifer Hopkins, who is a longtime community resident and a business person on Main Street. For many years, she ran the bookstore on Main Street, and she's very deeply involved in the Mack Center for the Arts, and I believe still serves as treasurer of that organization. And Jennifer served on the Water Commission that existed several years ago. So we've asked her to serve in order to bring some continuity forward from that group, and she's agreed to do so. Carl King, who many in this community know and has asked repeatedly for the opportunity to serve the community, has agreed to step up for this Water and Sewer Task Force. So we're thrilled that Carl will be joining that committee. And then finally, a man named Ed Gilderubio, who's a newer resident in Newport. He's been here a few years. Ed has extensive experience in city and county governance and also in managing water districts in all places in New Mexico, where I don't think there's anything more highly politicized than water rights in New Mexico, and also in Florida. He's just finishing a job that he's been doing for a number of years in Florida. So Ed has not given us a final approval, but he said we're okay to talk about him and lift up the fact that we've been in conversation, and he'll be making a final decision when he comes back to Newport later this week. So that's the Water and Sewer team. I will sit on that commission, that team as well. And then the next one is a smaller group for the Finance team, which we're calling Financial Reporting and Fiscal Practices. There are 3 people who have agreed to serve in addition to whoever this new council member will be. And those 3 are Susie Small, a relatively newer addition to the community here in Newport. Susie works as a financial planner. A man named Hal Rodenberg, who arrived in Newport actually back in October and has a master's in finance and worked for a number of years in New York City in finance. And so he brings a great deal of experience. And Lori Grimm, who's known to many in this community because she's a regular attender. She's been involved in community efforts here for, 20 years or more. And Lori has agreed to serve as well. She has a background in business and finance, and she's pretty skilled on things like spreadsheets. So I'm pleased with those 3. I think they bring very particular skill sets to the table, and we'll have the new council member that we appoint tomorrow, and I will serve on that task force as well. So that's all the news that is from the council meeting this week that I think you all needed to catch up on. And then I wanted to tell 2 brief stories about one that's from this week and one that's from 2 years ago, actually. So the story from this week is that yesterday I was given the honor of being invited as mayor to go and attend and participate in a conversation with Senator Peter Welch here in Newport and with a minister of the Parliament in Canada, Madame Marie-Claude Bibeau. The 2 of them hosted this conversation about the impact of tariffs. And the conversation going on right now, the back and forth and up and down about tariffs from the Trump administration. And they invited roughly 30 people from both sides of the border, community and civic leaders, and a lot of business people who have businesses that are working in a binational way. And those folks all came together yesterday morning at the East Side restaurant at 10 o'clock. The meeting went on, I think it started at 10:30 and went on for well over an hour and a half. And I'll say a few things. One, Senator Welch made it clear to Madame Bibeau and to all of those present how deeply disturbed he is by the current up and down, back and forth, around in circles nature of what's coming out of the Trump administration regarding tariffs, and spoke to his own concern that even if the tariffs are not fully implemented in the way that they've been proposed, it's the uncertainty that's actually creating a great deal of challenge. And Madame Bibeau also spoke to open and welcome folks to the gathering and spoke about the great relationships and the kind of the deep abiding respect and even love for one another that Canadians and the U.S. have had for one another for many years, and spoke about how challenging it is right now because the disrespectful way in which our president has chose to constantly approach the conversation about Canada, derogatory comments about making it the 51st state, and the significant impact that those comments are having in Canada with folks who are saying, we have always appreciated our relationship with people in the United States, and in particular with folks in Vermont, but we're deeply disturbed and we're not simply going to lay down without rising up in some kind of protest about the way that that relationship is currently being played out. So they both opened, and then there were roughly 25 or 30 people who spoke for anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes each. Most of the business people who spoke, and most of the speakers were business people, I would say all of them spoke about the ways in which our 2 economies are so tightly tied together, particularly in Quebec and Vermont, and the importance of trying to protect those relationships and the devastating impact that high tariffs are likely to have, because they will kick off a back and forth tariff war between the 2 countries. And every time a product goes back and forth across that border and we add to the cost of it, it's quite likely to damage businesses that are doing business on both sides of the border, and potentially high potential for hitting local folks in the pocketbook, again, on both sides of the border. So I found it fascinating to be a part of it, and was grateful for the chance to be invited to be a part of that conversation. And I just wanted to let you all know that even as those difficult conversations are playing out, I spoke with Madame Bibeau immediately following the press conference, and we agreed that we have a great deal to talk about as we work here in this area to protect the relationships between the northern part of Vermont, particularly the Northeast Kingdom, and the eastern townships and the area around Lake Memphremagog. So we will be following up on that with mayors and other leaders, civic leaders and business leaders on the northern side of this border. So I'll take a deep breath there. I've been going very fast, and you'll find I'm accustomed to doing that. The last thing I want to mention today is I want to tell a little story that is actually it happened a year and a half or year and 3/4 ago. And for me, it kind of plays out all of the wonderful things that take place here in Newport in the summertime. And I met someone in Gardner Park as I was walking my dog this morning, and we agreed that we had loved having a real winter, and we were looking forward to mowing the lawn and having green grass. And I was thinking about that and thinking about how wonderful it is to be a part of the life of Newport, Vermont in the summertime here, and just how many amazing opportunities there are. And it made me think of this story that took place during the last weekend of July in 2023, which is the weekend that Phil White and Kingdom Games host swimmers who come from all over the country and around the world for long-distance swim competitions. They have a 1 mile, a 5K, a 10K, a 25K swim, all going on at the same time on the same day here on Lake Memphremagog. And it's a remarkable thing to be a part of. I've been a kayaker, we call ourselves yakers, to support long-distance swimmers for the last 3 years. And spending 9 hours in a kayak trailing a swimmer who is doing a totally heroic thing is among the greatest honors I've had in the last few years. So anyway, I was out on the Northern Star, operated by the nonprofit organization Memphremagog Community Maritime, along with a bunch of the swimmers on Friday afternoon before that event on Saturday, as they were learning the routes and looking at where the buoys had been placed that they would have to swim around. And there was a family that just happened to be on the boat that afternoon that had 3 or 4 kids with them, and they were from Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., and up here visiting family members. And I was still trying to recruit folks to participate in the parade that we put on, the Memphremagog swim parade that we put on that Friday afternoon as we welcome the swimmers to town. And this brings in another piece of this story. Many of you have seen the Memphrey costume that has been in parades here since 1986. And Barbara Malloy, who created that Memphrey costume with help from some professional companies here, still had Memphrey in her basement a couple of years ago. And as we became friends, I asked her for permission to bring Memphrey downtown and resurrect the Memphrey presence in a couple of our parades, the Pride Parade at the end of June and this parade for the Memphremagog Kingdom Swim in the end of July. So anyway, I was still looking for who I could put in the Memphrey costume to walk the parade route with us. And I got to talking with this family, and the kids were hyper and running around the boat. And I said, hey, do y'all want to be in the parade this afternoon? And they got all excited. And I turned to their parents and said, can I ask them to do it? And I was kind of late. I'd already asked. And the parents said, sure, that sounds great. And so they all showed up a couple hours later down at the municipal parking lot. And we put the kids in the Memphrey costume along with me. I was in with them. And we traipsed down Main Street. There are great pictures from that parade. And the kids had a ball. And at the end of it, they were given pick and shovel Tim and Doug's ice cream coupons for having participated in the parade. And they were so excited. And so they went over the next day and got ice cream. And then the rest of us all went back to the celebrations of the swimmers and did all the swims the following day. And it just occurred to me that it brings together so many pieces of who we are in Newport. You know, you've got a costume and a presence, the Memphrey presence that goes back 40 years almost in Newport. And Barbara's permission to use that costume in that parade and in the Pride Parade was wonderful. And then, you know, locals here make these amazing events happen. You know, when we talk about a 4-season outdoor recreation economy, I can't imagine a more emblematic person in this community than Phil White. He's the embodiment of a 4-season outdoor rec economy here. He pulls together these swim competitions, summer and winter, and he pulls together the Dandelion Run at the end of May or toward the end of May with a half marathon, and then the run that we do, the 10K run that takes place, that's the Harry Coro Freedom Run, I think he calls it, on the 4th of July. And then another run and bike that takes place, the Fly to Pie, that starts from Parker Pie Pizza in West Glover and goes, I guess, no, sorry, it starts at the airport, the fly part, and finishes at the Parker Pie Pizza in West Glover, 24.5 miles, 25 miles later. So that event is quite remarkable because you can do 5K, 10K. He does a special one that's 18 miles. I've done that run. And then a 25K, a 25-mile full marathon. And people can bike that route as well. So, Phil really has been working behind the scenes quietly to make Newport the home of a remarkable crew of people who come from all over the country and kind of adopt Newport for those weekends that they come throughout the year. And we couldn't do it, obviously, without Kingdom Games. Kingdom Games is the heart and soul of that effort. So I just wanted to lift up that story as we head into the summer and to let anyone who's watching this know that there is room to volunteer and to be a part of these remarkable events that take place throughout the year. And if you'd like to be involved, we can connect you with that. I can do it, or Felicia, the Associate Director at Newport Downtown Development, can help plug you in to Kingdom Games or to the parades or to almost anything you want to get involved in. The more all of us participate in creating the community we want, the better it's going to get. That's it on Newport Notes this week with Rick. I look forward to being back next week and having another conversation.